What happened with the Lorex scandal was probably the worst example of corruption within the legal justice system Australia has ever seen.
I think it's very disappointing that we've got to this point and it looks as if there will be no action taken in terms of accountability.
It's a damning verdict. Police and others who used notorious criminal barrister Nicola Gobbo as an informant are now off the hook.
Victorians are concerned about this and they want to have a transparent process and they want to have questions answered.
Some of Victoria's most eminent legal minds are speaking out about the decision to abolish the Office of Special Investigator, set up to probe criminal charges.
Because of the entanglement of so many aspects of the judicial process in Victoria, including the courts, lawyers, police, I think it was necessary to have that independent person to look at the scenario and be able to assess whether there was criminal conduct.
Former High Court Judge Jeffrey Nettle, with 45 years of legal experience, was that person. He was appointed following the Royal Commission into the scandal.
In their recruitment, use and management of Ms Gobo as a human source, a number of Victoria police officers fell short of their legal, ethical and professional duties and obligations.
The Royal Commission found that more than 100 police officers knew that Nicola Gobbo was being used as a human source and was particularly scathing of former Chief Commissioners Simon Overland and Graham Ashton.
The use of Ms Gobbo as a human source was also a systemic failure. It continued unchecked for years, even though many Victoria police officers, including very senior officers, were aware of it, but did nothing to investigate or prevent it.
After 18 months and 5,000 pages of evidence, Jeffrey Nettle's recommendations for prosecution were rejected by the Office of Public Prosecutions. Mr Nettle's frustration was laid bare in a series of letters tabled in the Victorian Parliament.
Probably one of the greatest legal minds in Victoria's history prepares briefs, and we get a Director of Public Prosecutions turning around and saying, "No, I'm not going to prosecute." Which is just extraordinary given it was their very own prosecutions which have been brought into complete disrepute.
The Director of Public Prosecutions, Kerry Judd, decided there was not enough admissible evidence. Much of this material was irrelevant to any likely facts in issue in the proposed proceeding, or if relevant, would have been inadmissible as a matter of law.
That's what we're doing. We're working with the community.
Police Commissioner Shane Patton says that decision was not influenced by the police.
That was a matter that was at arm's length from us.
The necessity to show the Australian public that we do actually have a justice system that we uphold and that this won't be repeated requires someone to be charged in relation to these matters. It's insanity, absolute insanity that nothing's being done.
A week later, the Premier announced the Office of Special Investigator was to be closed.
Investigators don't make good prosecutors. There needs to be a separation. If you have investigated a matter, you are altogether too close to it to be making decisions about whether a conviction is likely. The only thing that should guide that is the considered judgment of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Director Judd.
To comment that Mr Nettle is too close to the investigation to form a judgment about the prosecution is, in our view, belittling the investigation.
The Premier's comments in June have been condemned by a group of 38 Victorian silks and barristers who have signed a letter calling on him to retract his comments and to publicly apologise to Jeffrey Nettle. But today in a press conference when 7:30 asked about the group's letter, he denied his comments amounted to criticism of Mr Nettle.
No, I said no such thing.
Well, you did. You said that investigators
Well, I think
are
I'm
altogether
uniquely
too
placed
close.
to know what I said, given that I said it. I think what you might have done is had a look at what was reported about what I said.
I listened to the press conference,
Did you?
Premier.
Well,
Yes, I did.
I didn't say it. So I won't be apologising for something I did not say.
Daryl Burnett is a spokesman for the group and believes the Premier should never have made his earlier comments.
Well, in a true democracy, it's important to have a separation of powers between the executive government, of course, which the Premier leads, and the judicial and prosecutorial process. It's very important for the confidence of the citizens that is the case.
Victoria Police Commissioner Shane Patton, former Commissioner Graham Ashton, Attorney General Jacqueline Symes and DPP Kerry Judd all declined 7:30's request for interview. Legislation to abolish the Office of Special Investigator is expected to be introduced into Parliament next month. The opposition says it'll vote against it and will push for any evidence collected by the office to be protected.
Because while the current Director of Public Prosecutions doesn't want to press charges based on that evidence, who knows, the next Director of Public Prosecutions may want to.
If anyone knows why an independent investigation into Victoria Police was needed, it's retired Judge Murray Callum, who is scathing about the decision to use a lawyer as an informant.
The fact is we do have a system of justice that really guarantees our freedoms. I can tell you I've been in places where you don't have those systems and people are locked up who are not guilty, locked up because of arbitrary methods of investigation, and that's what this was. This was an arbitrary method of investigation and was grossly negligent and obviously carried the risk of miscarriage of justice, obviously.
It was Mr Callum's IBAC inquiry in 2015 that first exposed the extent of police misconduct in recruiting Nicola Gobbo as a police informant.
Well, we established, first of all, that the knowledge of this conduct went to a high level in VicPol, almost the highest level, if not the highest level. So it wasn't just a folly on the part of some junior policemen, it was a determined strategy.
The Royal Commission noted more than 1,000 convictions could be affected because of Nicola Gobbo's actions. Those already overturned are accused murderer Farouk Orman and alleged drug trafficker Zlate Svetanovsky, who walked free after 10 years in jail. Appeals for convicted drug traffickers Tony Mokbel and Robert Karam are some of those in train. Barrister Zara Gard-Wilson is representing Karam, who was jailed for 37 years.
Back in 2016, in open court, I was told that the concept that Lawyer X was a police informer and the concept that she was informing on my client was a delusional fantasy. And what we've now found are thousands and thousands and thousands of documents that clearly show she was a police informer.
And what happens? Nothing. No accountability, nobody charged, swept under the carpet.
The opposition warns that any possibility of prosecutions might be a long way off.
What concerns me is that I think there are some very powerful institutions and some very powerful people in Victoria who want all this to go away. We're talking about people in government, people in Victoria Police, and even people in the law. They want this to disappear, but that's not in the public interest and it's certainly not in the interest of justice.